Hello, you're watching Sharing Vietnam, a 15-minute talk show daily on NetViet VTC 10. My name is Văn Hiệp, and today we'll talk about the way that the businesses in Vietnam get access to the capital. And joining our program today, we are very happy to welcome Mr. Hisrick, Director, Walker Center for Global Entrepreneurship, Thunderbird School of Global Management. So first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Hisrick, for joining our program today.
Well, thank you. It's been fun to be here, and it's been nice talking with you.
So first of all, Mr. Hisrick, we know that you have come to Vietnam for 3 days and have presented in a lot of conferences. So are you now familiar with your life in Vietnam and comfortable to answer our questions?
Oh, very much so. I've been very welcomed here. I feel people have been very nice. I enjoy the people as I have in the United States, Vietnam's people I know over there. So I've enjoyed my 2 days here in Hanoi and look forward to my next days down in Ho Chi Minh City. So yes, you have a very nice popular people and a very friendly country and very good food. So why would you not enjoy?
So Mr. Hisrick, now we will come to the topic of our show today, that is about the access to capital for the small and medium enterprises. And nowadays, many small and medium enterprises are complaining about the way that they get access to the capital. So this situation is also popular around the world. So can you tell us what are the reasons for the difficulty in access to the capital from the side of small and medium enterprises?
Well, I think what happened in the global economy, there was a lot of bad investments, and there was a lot of people that were, particularly in the residential sectors of economies, that were putting together and loaning money for things that didn't deserve to be loaned. And remember, when you loan money, it's what we call asset valuation. So I'm loaning you money because I believe you have an asset that is more valuable than the loan I'm going to give you. And when you don't have the correct valuation of an asset, that means loans are going to go bad. So that whole sector of financing and some of the kinds of situations that occurred all over the world. Then you have whole economies that have been built on a very false infrastructure that says, I can spend more money than I take in. And we all know in our own lives, if I make so much money, I can only spend so much money. And yet you have whole economies, particularly in the European Union, that were spending more money than they were be able to take from their taxes. So that had to be subsidized by other nation states. So this kind of economy just can't exist forever. I mean, it's a very simple model of economics that always works and has worked for as long as I've been alive and long before I was even born. So I think there were some very interesting situations that happened that shouldn't have happened. But they did. We paid a very severe price for that over a 4-year period. It's been a very, very tough climate for businesses. And what you'll see happening in every situation is when there's downturns, good management, good businesses survive, and the bad ones don't. So, you know, some of my competitors aren't in business anymore. That makes more market opportunity for me. We survived. So good management, you see people that how talented they are when they're able to do well in a down economy.
As of July 30, the credit growth rate of the banking sector reached only over 1%. However, recently, banks have been publicizing that they are allowed to expand their credit growth targets. The SBV has allowed 10 banks to increase credit growth room. Most of the banks which are accepted to expand their credit growth targets include Ocean Bank, Tiên Phong Bank, HD Bank, etc. Several foreign banks such as ANZ and Sumitomo are allowed to raise their credit growth room. Several suppose that banks have asked for an expansion of their credit growth targets to 25 to 30% because they are under profit pressure by their shareholders in the context that banks' profits in the first 2 quarters was low. However, the flow of money from banks into needy enterprises is not an easy stuff.
Most of the enterprises now in Vietnam are small and medium enterprises. So when they mobilize the capital, what should they pay attention to?
Well, I like to attract capital from people that are going to give me more than just capital. So if I get some expertise, I get some skills in that, I get some experience base in different markets. So I always like to get more than just the money. I like to get something else that whoever is providing the capital can contribute to the well-being of my company. So if I was a small business here in Vietnam, I would look for the same thing. Does the investor not only bring me capital, which I can then use to grow my company, but does that investor bring some experience base or some expertise that I don't have?
So, Mr. Hisrich, we know that in order to get the loans from the banks, the businesses have to show the feasibility of the project. So, can you tell us what are the criteria to assess the feasibility of the projects before getting loans from the banks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about a business plan. And, you know, when, back in 1991 days when I was operating a lot in Hungary and I was doing some work, I was training Russian bankers on how to evaluate loan, business plans for loan potentials. And I think it's the same thing here. So you got to have a business plan. And the key elements for any investor is, number one, the management team. How skilled are they? How educated are they? How capable are they? And how much experience do they have? Number two is the product or service idea you have, and what we call, I label as unique selling propositions. So is the product or service idea this company wants to have money for, a loan or an equity investment, same difference. Is it unique and different so that it can compete in whatever market it's competing in? Number three is it's got to be a large enough market. So many times we come up with ideas and the only market is your mother and yourself, and you know that's not enough market to make a business out of. So how big is the market? Is the market growing? Can I reach the market successfully? Is it a market where I can have revenue? Because it's all about the revenue model. And then finally, it's about the finances. And one of the features of the business plan is what we call pro forma or forecasted statements. And I look at the pro forma income statement, and that has basic elements of, you know, total revenue minus cost of goods sold equals is gross margin minus operating expenses equals profit before taxes minus taxes equals profit. That's the same all over the world. Whether you're on the international accounting system or more the U.S. accounting system, the differences are more how do you handle some expense items such as depreciation. But whether I operate in any country, I have the same thing. So I think investors know this, and once they're trained to do this, they evaluate the same way we run a business.
So, in your opinion, what is the role of auditing in the way that the businesses get access to the loans from the banks and also from other sources?
Yeah, I think one of the things I watched, for example, when in 1989 when I was living in Hungary, and it moved from a controlled economy to a market-oriented economy. One of the things most of the Hungarian companies didn't understand, they had no idea on their costs. And they had no idea of what to look for in terms of management. So I believe very firmly in auditing and understanding your costs. I think one of the things that people need to have training in is this whole thing about financial and fiduciary responsibility. And I think that is going to get more and more important in the world. Because, you know, if you're not trustworthy, if they don't believe in you, if they don't believe in your numbers, then I don't know how you run a business, and I don't know how you could ever attract investment capital.
Given the decision to reduce interest rate on existing loans to less than 15% and downward adjustment interest rate on new loans to low levels, similarly, banks accept to sacrifice a part of their profit to support enterprises. In Q1 in Vietnam, 2,200 enterprises completed dissolution procedure, and more than 9,700 enterprises registered to limit or shut down their operation or delay tax obligation. One of the principal reasons for this phenomenon is enterprises' lack of funds.
Thì thực tế là chúng tôi đang rất là nỗ lực, liên tục chúng tôi phải làm những công tác để có thể là giảm được cái chi phí hoạt động của chúng tôi. Từ đầu năm giờ cái mức lãi suất của tôi là tôi nghĩ là giảm được gần nếu mà tính ra là gần hơn 6% cái mức lãi suất từ đầu năm đến giờ. Và đặc biệt chúng tôi tìm những nguồn vốn linh động hơn doanh nghiệp. Ví dụ doanh nghiệp mà vay 3 tuần, tức là những doanh nghiệp vay vòng rất là nhanh thì lãi suất 11% thôi.
Sharing difficulties against enterprises at present, Several banks have launched interest rate courtesy packages with 1 to 3% lower interest rate than usual. The first sight is that these banks sacrifice their profit by quickly reducing lending interest rates and gradually lowering lending rates to 12 to 13% per year.
Hệ thống ngân hàng phát triển dựa trên cơ sở khách hàng của mình phát triển. Khách hàng khó khăn thì tự thân là các tổ chức tín dụng phải khó khăn. Ở đây không có cái vấn đề là hỗ trợ hay là nhượng bộ hay là một cái lòng tốt gì ở đây cả, mà đây đó là một quy luật khắc nghiệt của thị trường. Ở đó người cho vay và người đi vay phải hiểu rằng nếu như tình hình tài chính của người vay mà rất khó khăn thì đến một lúc nào đó anh phải mất vốn. Cho nên việc các tổ chức tín dụng phải hạ thấp cái lãi suất xuống. Thì đây là một cái biện pháp đương nhiên mà tổ chức tín dụng phải làm.
Clearly, several banks have shown their willingness to share difficulties against enterprises to jointly overcome the current period. Banks' operating activities always attached to enterprise interests. Enterprises get trouble, banks will face difficulties. Enterprises go bankrupt, banks will be affected. Therefore, currently, banks cannot put profit at most, but safety. In the coming time, if this effort is maintained, enterprises will completely likely overcome challenges.
Many people say that if the commercial banks support the enterprises in this situation, it means that the commercial banks' revenues will be reduced. So how do you assess this statement?
Well, if you make a good loan and you're very diligent in your loan process, your revenues aren't going to be reduced because the people that you invest your debt to or invest in or give capital to, they're going to repay you. And you remember the repayment process is on the interest, not the principal part of repayment. Interest goes right to the income statement of the bank, which increases their revenue. The debt repayment or the payment of the principal, that goes to the balance sheet. So I don't understand how one could not, if they make good investment decisions, why they're not going to grow.
It is said that there is a difference, the gap between the commercial banks and the enterprises. So can you tell us how can the commercial banks and enterprises do to narrow the gap between the two sides?
We had that problem in the United States where the banks weren't lending money, particularly to small and medium-sized industries. I had my line of credit decreased from 20 million to 10 million just because of certain issues that banks were having. So I think the only way a small business can really deal with the banking community and the providers of debt is you have to really look at banks and you have to establish a relationship with them. And banks basically loan on asset value. So if I don't have any assets, I'm not going to get any loans. So I need to create some things that have value for the bank that they can look at. Some might be intellectual property. So if I have a patent, that has so much value. Might be that I have so much sales and revenue and market potential. That has some value. So banks do the same kind of investment decision making as investors do. And for an entrepreneur, I look at the same thing as trying to attract investors. How can make my company look more attractive to attract debt financing from the bank?
And once again, thank you very much, Mr. Hisrich, for joining our program, and we wish you all the best in Vietnam.
Well, a pleasure being here, and I wish you the best of success.
And with that, we have to wrap up our program for today. For comments and feedback, please send us an email at sharingvietnam@gmail.com. And once again, I'm Văn Hiệp. Bye for now.
Xin cảm ơn giáo sư Robert Hisrich và biên tập viên Văn Hiệp. Tiếp theo chương trình, mời quý vị và các bạn cùng đến với câu chuyện hội nhập ngày hôm nay cùng biên tập viên Vương Tân.
Cảm ơn biên tập viên Thanh Trang. Năm 2012, Việt Nam đã triển khai đề án đào tạo nghề cho lao động nông thôn đến năm 2020 với mục tiêu đào tạo khoảng 600.000 lao động cho khu vực nông thôn, trong đó đặc biệt ưu tiên cho các xã xây dựng nông thôn mới. Đây được cho là hướng đi từng bước cải thiện chất lượng lao động, tạo động lực phát triển cho kinh tế nông thôn.